Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 28 of Ultimate Exotics, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of supercars, some of which are kind of classics of the supercar world, such as the F40 and the 288 GTO, and this particular car also falls into that category. It's possibly the most popular bedroom wall poster of any car ever. It's the 1988 25th anniversary Lamborghini Countach. Now, interestingly, Countach is a slang term, if you will, which is uttered in Italy when people see an attractive woman. They would say Countach, and that is what I believe it was the head of the company, if I remember correctly at the time, said when he saw the design of the car, and so they decided to name it that. And for pretty much its whole production run, even up to today, there are still many people, to say the least, who love the Countach. It was featured in a variety of forms, it changed its shape, it gradually got a little bit more crazy over the years with the additional wings, the pumped up bodywork, etc. Whereas in the beginning it was almost like a Stratos in its initial form, a very similar shape. It had that smooth, relatively simple design style and gradually got more complex. Something which it interestingly shares also with some TVR models, which were quite simple in the beginning but got more and more complex with aerodynamic changes and scoops and wings, etc. But classic supercars have a bit of a reputation, to say the least. Cars like the Countach, the Diablo, the F40, the 288 GTO, they're known as being a bit of a handful, and that is one of the reasons why people love them so much, but that's not necessarily the best of things to have going for you around the track, especially when you're taking on modern supercars. So can this car really accomplish that? Because the F40 is very tricky to set up correctly. The 288 GTO is phenomenal in a straight line, but around the track, again, it's very twitchy and hard to set up correctly. So how does the Countach fare? Because Lamborghinis are known pretty much more than Ferrari, and perhaps even more than TVR, for being, in real life at least, death traps. People don't know how to drive them properly and end up crashing them. And the Countach is the perfect example of that. Well, I'm very happy to say, and to some extent shocked also to say, that the Countach is actually one of the best handling supercars in the game. Which is remarkable, given it's from 1988. Of the classic supercars that are on the game, I would say it's quite possibly the best. Because as fantastic as the 288 GTO is in a straight line, it doesn't come close to how controllable the Countach is around corners. This car is fantastic. Now, as far as sheer spec, it's powered by a 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V12, which, despite not having any turbo or supercharger to aid it, which is kind of unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about that, still puts out 731 horsepower and 516 foot-pounds of torque. It's relatively light, especially for an older supercar, which they didn't really use advanced composites like carbon fibre back then. The first supercar, if I remember correctly, to actually utilise carbon fibre was, funnily enough, a Countach, called the Countach Evoluzione, developed by a young man called Horatio Pagani, who many people know now for other reasons. But this car didn't have that, to my knowledge. It wasn't a carbon fibre heavy vehicle. However, it still manages to be very lightweight. It weighs only 1,221 kilos, which is pretty decent even for a modern supercar, let alone a classic. And thanks to that, even though it doesn't have as much power as many of the modern supercars, it still puts out a fraction under 600 horsepower per tonne, which is pretty good, to say the least. Another excellent thing about this car, mainly due to its not having as high a sheer spec, is the PP. The PP on most supercars is very high, usually 650 or more. This only sits at a very modest 596, which means it's far more usable. You can detune it without having to remove anywhere near as much power and neutering anywhere near as much of its ability as you would with many other supercars. For the 550 pp category, the 525, the 575, etc., it's a remarkably good car. And recently I made a race replica of this vehicle at the 560 pp level, which performed amazingly well. Another great thing about the Countach, and these just keep on coming, it's a great car, is the price. It's a lot cheaper than many of the other supercars in the game at 182,000 credits, which is still a six-figure price, of course, but is a lot less than many of the other supercars. The top speed is a lot better than you might think. Around 270 under its own power, without NOS or draft, and the acceleration is far from slow. Now, it's not quite as quick, of course, as some of the more modern supercars, especially if you're talking Veyrons and Huayras, but it's got more than enough speed for most circuits. So if you're looking for an old-school supercar that can genuinely take on the modern stuff around many circuits, the Countach may well be the car for you. But that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.